John Miller wiped his sweaty hands on his pants. Today was the day. After months of training, he would finally enter the Galactic Council chamber as Earth's first representative. He looked at his reflection in the polished metal wall of the waiting area. His blue diplomatic uniform felt too tight around his neck. "They're ready for you, Ambassador," said a small green alien with 4 arms. The alien's voice sounded like rocks in a blender. John nodded and took a deep breath. The fate of humanity might depend on the impression he made today. The massive doors opened slowly. They were 3 times taller than a human and carved with symbols from 100 different worlds. John stepped forward with as much confidence as he could fake. The council chamber was huge. The ceiling stretched so high that it disappeared into darkness. Rings of seats circled upward, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some looked almost human. Others floated in bubbles of strange gas or sat inside machines that kept them alive. 200 faces turned to look at him. Some showed curiosity. Many showed dislike or fear. The room buzzed with whispers in languages no human had ever heard before. Ambassador Miller of Earth approached the center circle, called a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. John walked forward. His footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. Susan Wright, his human aide, walked 2 steps behind him. Her face showed nothing, but he knew she was counting every possible threat in the room. In the center of the chamber stood the Grand Arbiter. The alien was tall and thin, made of something like clear crystal. Light moved through its body in patterns that might have been words or thoughts. "The Council recognizes Earth and welcomes its first representative," said the Arbiter. "Your species joins a tradition that began before your planet cooled from its molten state." John bowed slightly. He had practiced this moment 100 times. "Earth is honored to join the Galactic Council," he said, his voice steady despite his fear. "We come in peace and with hope for friendship." A sound like angry bees filled the chamber. John recognized it as laughter from the Sith delegates. Their 6 limbs waved in what his training said was a mocking gesture. "The human speaks of peace after destroying a Draxian battle fleet," hissed a large insect-like creature from the upper rings. John kept his face calm. The Draxian attack on Earth's moon colony had been unprovoked. Humanity's surprising victory had shocked the galaxy and earned them this invitation to the Council. "We defended our home," John said simply, "as any of your people would." The Grand Arbiter raised a crystalline arm for silence. "The human speaks truth. The Council has reviewed the conflict and found Earth acted within its rights." John was shown to his seat, a simple chair at the lowest ring. Susan sat beside him and leaned close. "At least 7 species in here have already decided they hate us," she whispered. "I counted 12 possible friends, and about 30 who are waiting to see which way the power shifts." John nodded slightly. "We knew it wouldn't be easy." "The Vrelzik ambassador keeps staring at you," Susan added. "3rd ring, blue skin, silver eyes." John found the alien without obviously looking. The Vrelzik were one of the oldest council members, with technology centuries beyond Earth's. The meeting began with issues John barely understood. Trade disputes between worlds he had never heard of. Border conflicts in parts of space humans couldn't yet reach. Rules about technology sharing that seemed designed to keep newer species weak. During a break, a small gray alien approached John. It had 6 fingers on each hand and large black eyes. "Human," it said in perfect English. "I am Elix of the Minori Republic. We should talk soon. There are things you must know about this council if your species wishes to survive." Before John could answer, the alien walked away. The warning was clear. Susan frowned. What was that about? John watched the Minori representative return to its seat. "I think we just found our first real information source. And from the sound of it, Earth is in more danger than we thought." The Grand Arbiter called the meeting back to order. As John took his seat, he felt the weight of 200 alien gazes, some curious, some hostile, all watching to see what humanity would do next. Earth's trial by fire had just begun. The Earth embassy on the Council Station was small compared to other species' grand halls. John sat at his desk, looking at holographic displays showing connections between different alien groups. After 3 weeks at the Council, patterns were becoming clear. "The Founding Five control everything," said Catherine Bell. She was the human military officer assigned to the Council. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. "They vote as a bloc on major issues." John nodded. The Founding Five were the oldest and most powerful species in the Council. The blue-skinned Vrelzik, the machine-minded Atorians, the hive-like Hedgeman Collective, the energy beings called the Pleiadian Concordat, and the six-limbed Zith Imperium. "They pretend to disagree sometimes," Susan added. She pointed to a recent vote about mining rights. "But they never let any important power slip away from them." John stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the massive space station curved away into the distance. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds docked at its ports. It looked peaceful, but he knew better now. "The Minori ambassador wants to meet again," John said. "I think we should accept." Catherine frowned. "The Minori have no real power here. They control only 3 star systems. But they've survived on the Council for thousands of years without being crushed," John pointed out. "That means they know how to play this game." Susan checked her datapad. "The Vrelzik have invited you to a private dinner tomorrow. They're offering to share some technology with Earth." John's eyes narrowed. "What do they want in return?" "Mining rights in our outer colonies," Catherine said. "Specifically, the moons of Neptune. They're trying to make us dependent on them," John said. "Classic move. Give us just enough tech to make us useful, but not enough to be a threat." The door chimed. A message appeared on John's screen from a Council security officer. 3 smaller species had asked for meetings with Earth in the next day. "Our stock is rising," Susan said with a small smile. "After we voted against the Atorian trade rules yesterday, some of the middle powers are seeing us as possible allies." John thought for a moment. "Accept the meeting with the Minori first, then the Juvari and the Pelter. Push the Vrelzik dinner back a day." Catherine raised an eyebrow. "Making the Vrelzik wait. Bold move." "If we run when they call, they'll never respect us," John said. Later that day, John and Susan walked through the market section of the station. Shops and food stalls from 100 worlds lined the curved hallways. Strange smells and sounds filled the air. "We're being followed," Susan whispered. John didn't turn around. "Council security." "No, look at the reflection in that shop window. The tall one with 4 eyes." John glanced casually at the window. A Hedgeman observer was staying exactly 20 paces behind them. Its compound eyes would miss nothing. "Ambassador Krell wants to know what we're up to," John said quietly. "Let's give him something to report." They stopped at a Minori food stall. The small gray alien behind the counter bowed slightly. "Human friends, try water flower. Good for your kind." John accepted a small cup of glowing blue liquid. He sipped it while looking directly at the Hedgeman observer. The 4-eyed alien seemed startled to be noticed. "Message sent," Susan said with a small smile. "They know we know." That evening, the Minori ambassador visited John's office. The small alien sat across from him, 6-fingered hands folded neatly. "You have made enemies quickly, human," Elix said. "The Founding Five do not like your independent voting." John shrugged. "Earth won't be bullied." "Brave words," Elix replied. "But many brave species are now extinct. The Founding Five have ways of dealing with threats." "Is that what we are? A threat?" The Minori's large black eyes blinked slowly. "Any species that thinks for itself is a threat to the current order, especially one that defeated a Draxian fleet." "Why are you telling me this?" John asked. "Balance," Elix said simply. "The Council needs new blood. It has grown stagnant. But you must be careful. Make allies before you make challenges." As the Minori left, John turned to Susan. "Set up those meetings with the smaller powers." We need friends fast. Outside the Earth Embassy, Ambassador Krell of the Hedgeman Collective watched with unblinking compound eyes. The humans were networking with minor powers. This was unexpected. This required a new approach. The game was just beginning. The emergency alarm woke John at 3 in the morning. He jumped out of bed as his communication screen lit up with urgent messages. The main one was from Earth Command. PROX, IMACENTURI, Coloni, Reportiving, UN King No Woen DISEASE. 50 dead, 100 sick. No known cure. John quickly called an emergency meeting. Within an hour, his team gathered in the secure room of the Earth Embassy. Catherine, Susan, and Alan Peters, their top scientist, all looked worried. "What do we know?" John asked. Alan ran his hand through his messy hair. "The disease started 3 days ago in the main settlement. It spreads through air and touch. Victims get high fever, then their skin turns gray. Then they die. Nothing stops it. Is it natural?" Catherine asked. Alan shook his head. "I don't think so. It only affects humans, not any plants or animals. And it spreads too quickly." John's face darkened. "You think someone attacked us?" "It fits what the Minori warned us about," Susan said quietly. Before they could discuss further, a message came through. The council was calling an emergency session about the human colony crisis. 2 hours later, John stood in the center of the council chamber. Above him, hundreds of alien representatives watched. Many looked concerned. Some seemed pleased. "The human colony must be quarantined completely," said the Zith representative, waving 4 of his 6 limbs for emphasis. "No ships in or out." "We agree," added the Atorian delegate, its mechanical voice cold. "All human ships must be grounded until we know this disease will not spread." John faced them calmly despite his anger. "My people are dying. We need help, not isolation. Earth has faced many diseases before. With cooperation, we can solve this." The Grand Arbiter's crystalline form shimmered. "What does Earth request?" "Medical aid," John said, "and permission to send our research ships to the colony." The debate lasted hours. The Founding Five pushed for complete isolation of all human worlds. Some smaller species offered help. In the end, the Arbiter allowed Earth to send 2 research ships with observers from 3 neutral Council species. Back in the embassy, Alan worked day and night studying data from the colony. After 3 days, he called John to the lab. "I found something," he said, pointing to a display showing the structure of the disease. "This isn't natural. Someone made this to kill humans." John leaned closer. "Can you prove it?" "Yes," Alan said. "These patterns here. They match Vrelzik biological research from 300 years ago. Someone used their old work as a starting point." "Can you cure it?" Catherine asked. Alan nodded slowly. "I think so. But we need certain materials only found in Vrelzik space." John's mind raced. If he accused the Vrelzik of biological warfare, it could start a war Earth would lose. But if he said nothing, more colonies might be attacked. "Make the cure with what we have," he told Alan. "I'll handle the politics." The next day, John requested a private meeting with the Grand Arbiter. The crystalline being agreed to meet in a neutral chamber deep in the station. "What you ask is unusual, human," the Arbiter said when they were alone. John took a data crystal from his pocket. "This contains evidence that the disease killing my people was engineered using Vrelzik biological research." The Arbiter's form flickered. "This is a serious accusation." "I'm not making it publicly," John said. "Yet, I want to know if the Council truly stands for justice, or if the Founding Five can kill my species without consequences." "Tread carefully, Ambassador," the Arbiter warned. "Even with evidence, challenging the Founding Five is dangerous." John stood firm. "My people are dying. I'll take that risk." As he left the meeting, John noticed a small gray figure watching from the shadows. The Minori ambassador nodded once, then vanished down a side corridor. Later that night, Susan rushed into John's office. Someone just delivered this. She held up a small container. It's from the Minori. They say it contains materials needed for the cure. John stared at the container. It seems we have an ally after all. And many enemies, Catherine added. Security detected 3 separate assassination plots against you today. John smiled grimly. Then we're making progress. John paced in his office. The cure for the disease was working, but slowly. Over 200 people had died at the Proxima colony. Every death felt like a personal failure. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open, and the Minori ambassador Elix entered without waiting for permission. We must speak privately, the small alien said. John nodded to Susan, who checked the room for listening devices, then left them alone. Your enemies underestimate humans, Elix said, sitting down. As mine did 10,000 years ago, when the Atorians nearly wiped out my species. John stopped pacing. Why are you helping us? Elix placed a data crystal on the desk. Evidence. The disease attack was not just the Vrelzik. All 5 founding species approved it. They fear how quickly humans adapt. John picked up the crystal. This could start a war if made public. Yes, Elix agreed. A war you would lose. But there are other ways to fight. Why help us? John asked again. What do the minority gain? Helix's large black eyes blinked slowly. Balance. The founding 5 have too much power. The council needs change to survive. New blood. After Elix left, John studied the data crystal. It contained meeting records, communications between the founding 5, and research files about the disease. The evidence was clear. They had planned to weaken humanity before humans became too powerful. Later that day, Catherine brought more news. She had been meeting with military representatives from other species. I found others who suffered similar attacks, she explained. The Juvari lost 10 worlds after they refused to let the hegemon mine on their planets. The Pelter were reduced to 1 small space station after they rejected Atorian religious ideas. John looked at the map of council space on his wall. There's a pattern. Species that grow too fast or don't follow unwritten rules suffer disasters. Natural disasters, pirate attacks, disease outbreaks, Catherine agreed. All carefully planned to look like accidents. How many species know about this? John asked. Many suspect. Few have proof, Catherine said. But 16 mid-level powers have offered to support Earth if we challenge the founding 5. 16 against 5 doesn't sound bad, Susan said. Catherine shook her head. The founding 5 controls 70% of council space, 80% of trade routes, and 90% of military power. John thought for a long moment. We need more allies and a way to fight that doesn't involve shooting. That evening, John met with representatives from the 16 supporting species. They gathered in a neutral zone of the station, a garden area designed to be comfortable for many different life forms. The Juvari ambassador, an insect-like being named Trit, spoke first. Your evidence matches what happened to my people, but challenging the founding 5 directly would be suicide. I agree, said the Pelter representative, a cloud-like creature floating in a special bubble. We must be smart, not just brave. John looked around the circle. Some aliens looked almost human. Others were completely strange, but all had suffered from the Council's broken system. I have a plan, John said, but it's risky and will take time. He explained his idea. They would not accuse the founding 5 publicly. Instead, they would search the Council's own ancient laws and history for weapons to use against them. The Council has existed for 50,000 years, John said. No system lasts that long without rules to prevent abuse of power. We need to find those original rules. A being made of crystal, smaller than the Grand Arbiter but similar, spoke up. I can help. My people have access to old records. The founding 5 have forgotten much of their own history. As the meeting ended, the Juvari touched John's arm with a delicate claw. Be careful, Human. The Founding Five have spies everywhere. If they learn what we plan, they will strike again. Walking back to the Earth Embassy, John felt eyes watching from every shadow. The station suddenly seemed more dangerous than ever before. Their search for justice had just become a race against time. The emergency council session had lasted for 15 days. John had barely slept, fighting against the political tricks and traps set by the Founding Five's representatives. His voice was rough from hours of debate. "The human claims are baseless," said the Hidgman speaker, its four eyes blinking in a pattern that showed anger. "They have no proof of any organized attack." John stood at the center of the chamber. He had not revealed the full evidence yet. He was saving that for the right moment. "We simply ask for a fair investigation," John said. "If the Founding Five have nothing to hide, they should welcome this." The Grand Arbiter's crystalline form shimmered in what John now recognized as frustration. The Council procedures do not allow for such investigations without more substantial evidence. Every time Earth tried to present their case, the Arbiter cited ancient rules that seemed to block them. Rules that had not been used in thousands of years. Back in the Earth Embassy, John's team gathered to rethink their approach. "They're burying us in procedures and rules," Susan said, dropping into a chair. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. "Meanwhile, 3 more human colonies have reported suspicious accidents." John rubbed his face. "There's something we're missing. The Council has lasted for 50,000 years. It must have ways to prevent complete control by a few species." A young aide entered with a message on a small paper. "This was delivered by hand, sir. No name." John read the note. "Research the arbitration clause of the first compact. Last used 4,322 years ago." "What is it?" Catherine asked. "Maybe a way forward," John said. "Susan, take a team to the Council archives. Look for the first compact and something called the arbitration clause." The Council archives were vast. Susan and 3 aides spent 20 hours searching through records. When she returned, her tired face showed excitement. "We found it," she said, placing an ancient data crystal on John's desk. "The first compact, the original agreement that created the Council, and the arbitration clause is real." John studied the information. The arbitration clause allowed any species to demand a full review of Council leadership if they could show evidence that the Council had violated its founding principles. "This hasn't been used in over 4,000 years, John said. "Because the Founding Five buried it," Susan explained. "They've changed the procedures so many times that most species don't even know it exists, but they never removed it completely." John smiled for the first time in days. "Then it's still valid. We can use it." The next day, John returned to the Council chamber. The Founding Five were pushing for sanctions against Earth for false accusations and disrupting Council harmony. John waited for the right moment, then stepped forward. "Earth invokes the arbitration clause of the first compact." A shocked silence fell over the chamber. The Grand Arbiter's crystalline form froze completely. "That procedure is outdated," the Vrelzik ambassador said carefully. "But it has never been removed from Council law," John replied. "Earth demands a review of Council leadership based on evidence that the Founding Five have violated the core principles of the Council." The Arbiter's form flickered rapidly, then steadied. "The human is correct. The arbitration clause remains valid, though long unused." The Zith representative rose in anger, 6 limbs moving in agitation. "This is outrageous. The humans seek to undermine thousands of years of stable leadership. If your leadership has been just and fair," John said calmly, "then you have nothing to fear from a review." The Arbiter raised a crystalline limb for silence. "According to the first compact, the challenged species must allow access to the historical archives for evidence gathering. A full Council vote will follow." The Hegemon representative's voice turned threatening. "You have made a grave mistake, human. The archives will show only what we wish them to show." But John noticed something strange. For the first time, The Grand Arbiter seemed to be watching the Founding Five with what looked like disapproval. Later, Susan pulled John aside. "What happens now?" "Now we go to the archives," John said, "and find enough evidence to convince the full council that change is needed. And if we fail?" John's face grew serious. "Then Earth stands alone against the five most powerful species in the galaxy." The historical archives were located deep beneath the council station. John, Susan, and a small team of human researchers followed their guide, a minor council official, down a series of long elevators and narrow hallways. "No one has requested full archive access in over 2,000 years, the guide said, sounding nervous. The final door was massive and made of actual metal, not the advanced materials used elsewhere on the station. It swung open with a heavy sound. Inside was a vast room filled with physical records, data crystals, paper books, scrolls, and strange recording devices from 100 different worlds filled shelves that reached to the high ceiling. "These are the actual records, not digital copies," said William Harris, the human historian on John's team. "They can't be changed or deleted remotely." The guide pointed to different sections. "Records are organized by time period and species. You have 14 days to complete your research under the arbitration clause." As the guide left, 6 council security officers took positions near the entrance. Their faces were neutral, but their hands stayed near their weapons. "They're watching us," Susan whispered. "Good," John replied. "It means they're worried about what we might find." The team split up to cover more ground. The work was difficult. Many records were in ancient languages that their translation devices struggled with. Some were stored in formats that required special equipment to read. For days they worked through alien documentation, translating, and cross-referencing. John slept only a few hours each night on a small cot they had brought in. On the 8th day, William called everyone to his workstation. "I found something important," he said, pointing to a set of ancient scrolls. "These are records from the early council period, about 48,000 years ago. They describe the first 1,000 years of the council's existence." John leaned closer. "What do they tell us?" "The council wasn't created by the Founding Five," William explained. "It was started by 23 species working together as equals. The 5 we know today were only part of the original group." Susan frowned. "Then how did they take control?" "Slowly," William said. "Over centuries, species died out or left. The 5 gradually changed the rules to give themselves more power. Over the next few days, they found more evidence. Records of deliberate crises engineered to weaken rising powers, secret agreements between the Founding Five to maintain their control. Most importantly, they found the original council charter. "This is our weapon," John said, carefully handling the ancient document. "The original charter specifically forbids biological warfare and guarantees technological autonomy for all member species. It also requires equal voting rights and representation for all council members," Susan added. As they gathered their evidence, an alarm suddenly blared through the archives. Red lights flashed on the walls. "Security breach in archive level," announced a mechanical voice. "All personnel evacuate immediately." The 6 guards at the entrance drew their weapons, but instead of protecting the human team, they pointed the weapons at them. "The Zith commander wants the humans removed," one guard said. "All evidence will be secured." John looked at his team. "Protect the data. It's our only hope." Catherine, who had joined them that morning, activated an emergency signal. "We need to split up. Each take some data and try to get out." William grabbed the original charter. "There's an emergency exit behind Section 12. I saw it on the old floor plans." As they scattered, more security forces burst into the archives. These wore Zith military uniforms rather than council security colors. "They're going to destroy the evidence," William shouted as he ran toward the back of the huge room. In the chaos, John became separated from the others. 3 Zith soldiers in environmental suits cornered him between tall shelves of ancient books. They raised their weapons. John prepared to fight, though he knew he had no chance against them. Suddenly, the wall beside him seemed to shimmer and slide open, revealing the hidden passage. The Minority Ambassador Elix beckoned urgently from inside. "Quickly, human," Elix hissed. "There are many in the council who have waited centuries for this moment." John hesitated only briefly before ducking into the passage. The wall closed behind him just as energy weapons fired, scorching the spot where he had stood. "How did you know?" John asked as they hurried through the narrow tunnel. "The Minority have survived by knowing all the secret ways," Elix replied. "Now follow me. Your friends are being helped by others. The evidence must reach the full council." Behind them, alarms continued to sound as the Founding Five tried desperately to bury the truth once more. The council chamber had never been so full. Every member species had sent representatives. The viewing areas were packed with diplomatic observers. The air felt thick with tension. John stood at the center of the chamber. Behind him stood Susan, Catherine, William, and the other human researchers. Each held data crystals and ancient documents rescued from the archives. "For too long, the Founding Five have corrupted this council," John said, his voice strong despite his exhaustion. The escape from the archives had been difficult. 2 human researchers had been injured by Sith troops. Large screens around the chamber showed evidence from the archives. Records of deliberate attacks against rising species, secret meetings between the Founding Five. The original council charter with its promises of equality and protection. "The evidence is clear," John continued. "The council was meant to protect all species, not to maintain the power of a few. The Founding Five have engineered crises, spread diseases, and sabotaged colonies whenever their control was threatened." The hegemon representative surged forward, its 4 eyes blinking rapidly with anger. "These are fabrications. The humans have tampered with ancient records." "The records are genuine," said a small crystalline being near the Arbiter's platform. This was a keeper of records, one of the long-lived species that maintained the archives. "Our verification is complete. The evidence stands." One by one, the 16 species who had allied with Earth stood to support John's claims. The Juvari spoke of their lost worlds. The Pelter described attacks against their people. Others shared similar stories. "We do not seek revenge," John said. "We seek reform. A return to the founding principles of this council. Equal representation, protection for all member species, an end to the manipulation and control." The Vrlzik ambassador rose from his seat. "This human speaks of principles, yet his species has been in space for barely a century. What do they know of galactic stability? The Five maintain order. Without our leadership, chaos would spread across the stars." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Some species nodded in agreement with the Vrlzik. Many seemed afraid to challenge the powerful Five. John looked around the vast chamber. This was the moment. Everything depended on what happened next. "The question is simple," he said. "Does this council exist to serve all species or just 5? Does it protect the weak or only the strong? The evidence shows what the council was meant to be. Now we must decide what it will become." The Grand Arbiter raised a crystalline limb for silence. For the first time, John noticed strange patterns flowing through the Arbiter's transparent body. They looked like emotions, powerful and ancient. "The evidence compels action," the Arbiter announced, voice resonating through the chamber. "In accordance with the original compact, I call for dissolution of current power structures and reformation under the balanced protocols established at our founding." The Zith representative leaped up, 6 limbs waving in protest. "This is outrageous. We will not accept this ruling." "You will," the Arbiter interrupted, voice suddenly hard and commanding, "or your species will face expulsion from the council." Shocked silence fell over the chamber. No one had ever heard an Arbiter threaten expulsion before. Later, as the chamber emptied, the Minority Ambassador approached John. "You have accomplished what many thought impossible," Elix said. "The Arbiters have waited centuries for this moment." John frowned. What do you mean? I thought the arbiters were just ceremonial leaders. Elix's large eyes blinked slowly. The arbiters are the last survivors of the species that first created the council. Their lifespans are measured in thousands of years. They have watched their creation become corrupted, but lacked the evidence and support to act. Until now, Susan said, understanding dawning on her face. Until humans arrived, Elix agreed. A young species, strong enough to challenge the five, principled enough to seek reform rather than dominance. As they spoke, the Grand Arbiter approached. Close up, the patterns inside its crystalline body were even more complex and beautiful. The council will change now, the Arbiter said. The process begins tomorrow. It will not be easy or quick. Will the founding five accept it? Catherine asked. The Arbiter's form shimmered. They have no choice. The full council has voted. Democracy has returned to the stars. 1 Earth year had passed since the dramatic council session that changed everything. John stood in the new council chamber, watching representatives from 200 species take their seats. The room looked very different now. Instead of rising tiers with the founding five at the top, all seats formed a circle on the same level. Your last day as Earth's ambassador, Susan said, joining him. How does it feel? John smiled. Good. It's time for someone else to take over. His replacement would arrive tomorrow. After 2 years representing humanity, John was ready to return to Earth. He had done what he came to do. The Reformed Council was far from perfect. Change came slowly to institutions that had existed for thousands of years. But real progress had been made. The founding five had lost their special status. They remained important due to their size and resources, but could no longer control council decisions alone. Every species now had an equal vote on major issues. The Zith delegation still looks angry, Susan noted, nodding toward where the 6-limbed alien sat stiffly. They'll adjust eventually, John said. They've already signed the new non-aggression protocols. That had been a major victory. After intense negotiations, all council species had agreed to rules preventing biological warfare and protecting the independence of smaller worlds. The disease that had attacked the human colony had been neutralized. The victims' families had received compensation from a special council fund. Similar help was being provided to other species who had suffered past attacks. Catherine joined them, now wearing the formal uniform of Earth's military liaison. The Defense Cooperation Program starts next month, she reported. 30 different worlds have signed up to share basic technology and training. This was perhaps the most important change. Under the old system, military secrets had stayed with the powerful few. Now, smaller species could better protect themselves through cooperation. You've made powerful enemies, Susan commented as they watched the Vrelzik representative enter the chamber. And stronger allies, John replied. The Minori ambassador approached, accompanied by the Grand Arbiter. The crystalline being's internal patterns glowed with calm blue light. Humanity has changed the council forever, the Arbiter said. Not all species have the right combination of traits needed to challenge systems without destroying them. We nearly failed, John admitted. But you persisted, Elix the Minori said. That is what we hoped for when we supported your species joining the council. John looked around the reformed chamber, truly understanding for the first time. This wasn't just a test of humanity, was it? It was a test of the council itself, whether it could still serve its original purpose. The Arbiter's body shimmered with what John now recognized as amusement. Systems must evolve or die. Empires rise and fall, but cooperation endures. A soft chime announced the start of the session. John took his seat one last time. Today's agenda included trade agreements, scientific cooperation, and aid for worlds damaged by past conflicts. No system was perfect. Already, new power blocks were forming among the council species. Earth itself was growing stronger, with more colonies and ships every year. One day, humans might be tempted to seek the same dominance the founding five had claimed. The Arbiter seemed to read his thoughts. Remember this moment when your own species grows powerful enough to forget, the ancient being said quietly. Today's victims can become tomorrow's oppressors. John nodded. I'll make sure we remember. As the session began, representatives from dozens of worlds approached to discuss Earth's expanding role in galactic politics. Above them all, the new council charter rotated slowly as a hologram in the chamber center, a reminder that even the most established powers must eventually adapt or be left behind. After the meeting, John packed his few belongings in the Earth Embassy. Tomorrow he would head home, leaving the council in new hands. He wasn't worried. Humanity had found its place among the stars. And if future humans ever forgot the lessons learned here, the records would remain in the archives, telling how a young species had helped remind an ancient institution of its founding purpose, that in the grand scope of galactic politics, cooperation always outlasts empire.